Plague. Now that's a name that fits pretty much very well these hard times we're living. It's also very fitting for a lot of metal band names. And curious enough, there are quite a few. This time we however travel to Greece with this death metal band of which debut album we have here for review. So without further ado, let's welcome Portraits of Mind. Debut album. As you can see, it's released by Refining Darkness, a small label previously unknown to me, or at least it doesn't really ring any bells. Maybe it should, but to be honest, it's hard to keep track with all the bands and labels out there, and this Refining Darkness is one of them. Also, Plague is a new name to me. I was actually contacted by the band, which seemingly has some mutual friends with me, and such I get to review this fine album here on Rauta. 7 tracks included, and the style is, I can tell you, as much as the cover and the logos, it's old school death metal. So this is good news for those who are into that kind of style. Pardon for the kind of a natural sunlight coming from my window, which is kind of a here to almost kind of like mirror the reflect on this glossy cover. It's a little bit unfortunate given that this cover image is quite nice, but what can you do? I'm a little bit short on time, and as such I really cannot always pick the time when I'm doing these videos. Hard time to compile, you know, all this stuff between work, family and whatnot. And Rauta, of course. So as you can see, quite a few names, quite a few bands with the name Plague, not to mention other bands related to Plague. But in case you to wonder out which one this is, we'll go to Greece and Plague, the death metal one, and there it is, beautifully done. From Athens / Galaxy, that's a place I don't even know. And as you can see, this one is 2020. 9 years in the making. What took so long? I cannot answer to that question, unfortunately, but I'll tell you this much, it's worth the wait. So here is the track list, 7 tracks, 36 minutes, and now this beautiful cover image. It's gross, it's kind of a vulgar, it's brutal, it's very beautiful. I could say even kind of a perfect death metal album cover. There is something so old school, so beautiful, so grotesque with this image that I cannot say anything else but thumbs up. This is the type of cover image I would love to see on every possible death metal album. Not literally just skeletons and skulls and, you know, these weird eyes, but, you know, the feeling. There's something so similar with Altars of Madness by Morbid Angel, yet totally different. Very, very old school, very 90s image. Just beautifully done. And if we take a look on this Metal Archive site, the main page to see, you can see their Bandcamp, Facebook and Instagram to check it out. And of course you can see the band members here. Looking pretty normal guys. Everybody having just black shirt on, and that's it. No logo shirts, no weird special pants, you know, the kind of a cargo pants, no weird haircuts, just normal dudes. But the stuff they actually do is pretty awesome. And here's the Bandcamp page, as you can see, showing you when this album was released, February 14th, 2020, track list and the necessary information, as well as the lineup and all that stuff. And once again, this beautiful cover image. Now, like I said, Portraits of Mind is old school death metal. This is something that could have gone out, I don't know, 1992 or so, 1996. Really 90s stuff. Everything on this album except the sound, you know, the production is actually pretty much of this day, and in a good way. That is, this doesn't sound like the sloppy debut albums that so often happened in the early 90s when the budget was low, and if you had to do your own garage recording, well, the sounds would reflect that with, you know, poor drum sounds, maybe weak guitar sounds, non-existent bass or whatever. But this time, you know, you have good production, and still it's kind of a sounding like what was going on in early 90s, maybe even late 80s, but I would put this on the early 90s side. Now, this is an album that doesn't sound just like Swedish death metal or American death metal, but more like bits and pieces from different countries. And the band has actually boiled this soup into a nice combination of these elements. And what comes as a result, the outcome is just nice. Now, this is not mind-blowing, because obviously if you're an old school death metal fan, if you're an old-timer, you've gone through decades of death metal. Obviously, basically everything you hear in this album are one way or another kind of a familiar. You're like, hey, I remember this kind of riff on album, that and that. I don't work, my mind doesn't really work that. I cannot say, hey, this track number 4 is pretty much like you could hear in this and that album. But the overall feeling is like, I've been here, I've been in this place, I've been in this mindset, and this kind of takes me back to my teenage years, when I was just kind of new to the genre, exploring new names every possible week, and I was like, okay, this sounds cool, this is also good, this is pretty good, and all that stuff. So Plague is just, tapping into the veins of old in a nice way. Now, if I had to call some flaws on this album, I would say this is not original. This is not just something new that pops up and just conquers the world like that. However, that is not a big flaw, because overall, this is something what I enjoy, listening old school death metal. Mid-tempo, slow tempo, a little bit faster parts also, but kind of a very traditional ways. Now, I wish this was more kind of a mind-bending in a ways that, there would be more parts I would remember like that. The killer kind of a chorus part, killer riffs, or just guitar leads that's just like blows my mind. But this is not having any of those. It's not like a big deal, but that is kind of one of the things which separates good from the great. And considering that this is a debut album, I really can't complain, because only a few bands, especially nowadays, especially when the listener audience is older and more experienced, it's really hard to surprise, so-called like pants down, like, oh, what the hell is going on here? But that being said, this is a nice death metal album which I totally suggest you to check out. That is, unless you're allergic to old school death metal in the first place. So any of you old school death metal fans, get this, check it out, and listen here on Bandcamp or whatever source you need to check it out. This is a good album, and I hope that you will like it as well. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Take care.